There's exciting new research and a new theory on why this epidemic is occurring. I would like to introduce you to this concept of the set point by showing you a portion of the TED Talk by neuroscientist Sandra Aamodt.
Three and a half years ago, I made one of the best decisions of my life. As my New Year's resolution, I gave up dieting, stopped worrying about my weight, and learned to eat mindfully. Now, I eat whenever I'm hungry, and I've lost 10 pounds. This was me at age 13 when I started my first diet. I look at that picture now and I think, you did not need a diet, you needed a fashion consult. But I thought I needed to lose weight. And when I gained it back, of course, I blamed myself. For the next 3 decades, I was on and off various diets. No matter what I tried, the weight I'd lost always came back. I'm sure many of you know the feeling. As a neuroscientist, I wondered, why is this so hard? Obviously, how much you weigh depends on how much you eat and how much energy you burn. What most people don't realize is that hunger and energy use are controlled by the brain, mostly without your awareness. Your brain does a lot of its work behind the scenes. And that is a good thing, because your conscious mind, how do we put this politely, it's easily distracted. It's good that you don't have to remember to breathe when you get caught up in a movie. You don't forget how to walk because you're thinking about what to have for dinner. Your brain also has its own sense of what you should weigh, no matter what you consciously believe. This is called your set point, but that's a misleading term because it's actually a range of about 10 or 15 pounds. You can use lifestyle choices to move your weight up and down within that range, but it's much, much harder to stay outside of it. The hypothalamus, the part of the brain that regulates body weight, there are more than a dozen chemical signals in the brain that tell your body to gain weight, more than another dozen that tell your body to lose it. And the system works like a thermostat, responding to signals from the body by adjusting hunger, activity, and metabolism to keep your weight stable as conditions change. That's what a thermostat does, right? It keeps the temperature in your house the same as the weather changes outside. Now, you can try to change the temperature in your house by opening a window in the winter, but that's not going to change the setting on the thermostat, which will respond by kicking on the furnace to warm the place back up. Your brain works exactly the same way, responding to weight loss by using powerful tools to push your body back to what it considers normal. If you lose a lot of weight, your brain reacts as if you were starving. And whether you started out fat or thin, your brain's response is exactly the same. We would love to think that your brain could tell whether you need to lose weight or not, but it can't. If you do lose a lot of weight, you become hungry, and your muscles burn less energy. Dr. Rudy Leibel of Columbia University has found that people who've lost 10% of their body weight burn 250 to 400 calories less because their metabolism is suppressed. That's a lot of food. This means that a successful dieter must eat this much less forever than someone of the same weight who's always been thin. From an evolutionary perspective, your body's resistance to weight loss makes sense. When food was scarce, our ancestors' survival depended on conserving energy. And regaining the weight when food was available would have protected them against the next shortage. Over the course of human history, starvation has been a much bigger problem than overeating. This may explain a very sad fact. Set points can go up, but they rarely go down. Now, if your mother ever mentioned that life is not fair, This is the kind of thing she was talking about. Successful dieting doesn't lower your set point. Even after you've kept the weight off for as long as 7 years, your brain keeps trying to make you gain it back. If that weight loss had been due to a long famine, that would be a sensible response. In our modern world of drive-through burgers, it's not working out so well for many of us. That difference between our ancestral past and our abundant present is the reason that Dr. Yoni Friedhoff of the University of Ottawa would like to take some of his patients back to a time when food was less available. And it's also the reason that changing the food environment is really going to be the most effective solution to obesity. Sadly, a temporary weight gain can become permanent. If you stay at a high weight for too long, probably a matter of years for most of us, your brain may decide that that's the new normal.
Now I want to show you a video that really elaborates on this concept in a more detailed way.
Let me introduce you to Amanda. You're just meeting her for the first time, but chances are you're already making assumptions about how much she eats and how little she exercises because she's obese. But I'm about to show you that there's much more than meets the eye when it comes to obesity. There are lots of Amandas out there and they need treatment. Maybe you're one of them, or maybe you know an Amanda. It's time to act on obesity. But in order to do so effectively, we need to understand obesity. It's generally accepted that body weight is determined by a pretty simple formula. We call it the energy balance equation, and it works like this. If the number of calories that you consume equals the number of calories that you burn, your weight remains the same. If you consume more than you burn, you gain weight. And if you burn more than you consume, you lose weight. Most people think that those of us who properly manage our energy balance remain lean, whereas those of us, like Amanda, who eat too much and exercise too little, become obese. We view obesity as a lifestyle choice, and the cure for it is simple: eat less and exercise more. This may sound logical, but it's wrong. Let me explain. First, let's talk about set point. No, I'm not talking about the point in a tennis match when one player is about to beat the other. I'm talking about a theory that says that no matter what you consciously want your weight to be, your brain has its own sense of how much body fat it should have on board, and it has a complex system in place that very precisely regulates your energy intake and expenditure to keep you within a so-called set point range for body fat. So that whole energy balance equation, it's not something that you control voluntarily. Your brain regulates your calories in to your calories out for you. For your brain to do this, it needs to know how much energy you have on board at all times. And it knows this by listening to hormones like leptin, which is made in your body fat. You can think of it like a car. Leptin is the gas gauge that tells your brain how much gas is in your tank. But leptin is just one piece of the puzzle. You've got a whole bunch of other hormonal signals and sensors that are involved too. Your bones, muscles, pancreas, liver, GI tract and sensory organs, they all play a role, communicating with your brain to give it the information it needs to do its job. But that's more detail than we need for this conversation. The point is that you have a complex system in place that regulates you to within a set point range for body fat. So what happens if Amanda decides to lose weight by going on a diet? After all, people with obesity should eat less, right? Here's what happens. She loses weight, but her hormone levels change. Her brain hears this, and it starts acting to restore whatever body fat she's lost. She feels hungrier, and although she doesn't know it, she's also burning fewer calories than before. You see, set point is usually a one-way street. Once it's been elevated, the brain works to defend it just as vigorously as it would a lower set point. Amanda's brain doesn't know that she needs to lose weight. It only knows to defend her current set point. Back to our car analogy. Amanda can't help but look for a gas station to refuel when she sees that her gas gauge is low. At the same time, she becomes more fuel efficient, burning less energy than before. This might explain why treating obesity with diet and exercise so often fails to produce the desired results. It's sort of like telling Amanda that she needs to be a more careful driver, when the real problem is that she needs a mechanic to fix her car. Okay, So if we've all got this complicated system in place that prevents us from losing weight, why doesn't it also protect us from gaining weight and developing obesity in the first place? How can we explain the obesity epidemic? Getting back to Amanda, why did she develop obesity? The answer is that it takes a perfect storm to cause an obesity epidemic like the one we're seeing now, and it's our modern environment that places us, and Amanda, directly in the path of that storm. While there's no single cause for the rising rate of obesity, changes to the chemical and nutrient content of our food, the so-called Western diet, a decrease in physical activity, increased levels of stress, inadequate and disrupted sleep, and more widespread use of medications that promote weight gain all play a role. Our unique genetics and developmental histories cause each of us to respond differently to these elements of the modern environment, and some of us, like Amanda, respond by sending hormonal signals that elevate our set point for body fat. It's not that Amanda's system has stopped working, it's just that it's working to regulate her to a set point that's too high. So you can think of obesity as a biological response to the modern environment, a disease where the body dysregulates to a body fat set point that is too high. Back to our car analogy. The size of Amanda's gas tank has expanded, so she carries around too much fuel.